Hi, this is Lou, welcome to my channel, and today I'm going to be painting some snowflakes using some masking fluid and watercolour. I hope you'll join me. So from some other projects I've been doing, I've got some offcuts of really nice watercolour paper that are just a strange, long, thin shape. So I thought I'd trim them down into tiny little squares and then use them for some fun projects. So I've got one in mind today, which is making snowflakes using masking fluid to create the white of the snowflakes, and then having a play with some different blue tones and some salt to create some different textures. So I've got this Winsor & Newton masking fluid, and I'm just going to pour a little bit out into a cup just to make it easier to get to. And then I'm going to use an old paintbrush. It's probably a good idea not to use a really good paintbrush for this, though you can protect them a little bit by running them through some soap beforehand. So I'm painting some snowflake shapes here. I found that the best way to do this, after a little bit of trial and error, was to make a dot in the centre of the page and then put some marks, 6 marks, because the snowflakes have 6 arms, top and bottom, and then sort of evenly spaced out to the right and the left. And then I can create the rest of the design by joining those things together or making them into the pattern, making them little dots or something like that. Each of my snowflakes is going to be slightly different. And you could draw them on first with pencil and then go over them with the masking fluid, but I'm just going to go straight in. I decided to do these little kind of feathery shapes on each of the arms of the snowflake. And then I just keep adding little bits of pattern, lines and dots, wherever I feel like I need to kind of fill in a little bit of the paper. I thought I'd have a little play with a different method of applying the masking fluid as well. And I've got these little kind of applicator bottles that come with a selection of fine tips. So I thought I'd give those a go. So I've got one that's got a kind of medium-sized, quite fine nozzle on the end. So I'm going to give that one a go to start with. So I'll just put a little bit of the masking fluid in the bottle. And then, and then start painting one, seeing how it works. And what I found was the size of nozzle that I've got on here and the kind of the liquid nature of the masking fluid that I've got meant that it sort of came out of the nozzle pretty much continuously, leaving me with some kind of big blobby shapes on the paper. So I did one snowflake with this method, but then I decided to try one of the smaller nozzles on this bottle instead. So I switched the nozzle on the bottle out to this very, very narrow one, and it's slightly bent, but it works just fine. And I found that this was actually much better, and I could get some really fine detail kind of drawing with this very fine pointed end. I did still get some kind of blobby bits, but I think a little bit of practice with this applicator and I will get better with it. Having said that, I quite liked the blobby bits. I thought they were quite interesting, and I thought they added something to the snowflake, a little bit of interesting character. I found this applicator was particularly good for applying tiny little dots and drawing some really small circles too. When you're finished, you can tip all of your masking fluid back into the container it came in and give everything a good thorough clean. I found that the very fine nozzle on the bottle that I was using clogged up really quickly. I only had to leave it out unused for really a few seconds and it kind of blocked up. So you sort of have to use it immediately and then clean it straight away. I found that the most effective way to clean these little applicator nozzles out was to fill the bottle up with clean water and squirt it through. Now you need to wait for your masking fluid to completely dry. And for me that happened a lot quicker with the masking fluid that I'd painted, and where I'd used the applicator it was a little thicker in places and it took a lot longer. And I did use a hairdryer to speed up the process of drying it. I decided on a little collection of blue paints. So I've got Winsor blue, red shade, Cobalt Teal, Pthalo Turquoise and Indigo. And I've just squeezed a little bit of each of them out onto this plate that I'm using as a palette. Painting these is really fun and it can be a little bit messy as well. All I'm going to do is use some very wet watercolour, so adding quite a bit of water into my colours and then smushing them around on the page. I can add a little bit of clean water and allow the paint to move into that area, and I can add more intense colours in some areas to give myself some contrast. And I'm just picking the shades randomly from the selection that I've got on the palette. To add a little bit of interest, I'm throwing on some salt. As the paint dries, the salt crystals will move the pigment around and you'll get some interesting textures on the paper. You don't have to worry about painting around all of those areas where you've put the masking fluid. You just paint right over the top of everything, and as long as it's completely dry, everything will look great. I also added some splatters of paint over the top, just to give, again, a little bit more texture and contrast. If your paint's a little bit dry, you may find it not covering all of the areas, so you end up with little gaps. So make sure you've kind of gone over everything and filled in all of those little spaces. I had a lot of fun just putting down the colours and seeing how they merge and blend. So you've got to wait for quite a while for these to dry. I left mine for 2 hours and there were still some wet patches on them. So again, I got the hairdryer out to speed up the process of drying them off. And then when they're dry, you can start carefully removing the salt, just brushing it off. Occasionally it sticks in places and I had to pick a couple of bits off. As you're doing this, be very, very gentle with it because the salt can conceal some areas of wet paint underneath it. And then with the salt removed, you can go in with a clean hand, a thumb or a finger, and just start to carefully rub away at the areas where the masking fluid is. Sometimes you can even peel up long bits of it. And you should find it all sort of balls up and comes off. If you don't want to use your fingers, I found a hard eraser works quite well for this process too. I really like seeing the snowflakes appearing out of the blue. And this one where I did the very, very fine lines with that really tiny applicator nozzle, I think is my favourite. I really love the little small circles that I've got on there. It's incredible the amount of detail you can get with such a fine nozzle. So here are my finished snowflakes. I really hope that you enjoyed the video, and I hope that you have fun with this project if you give it a go. If you'd like to share your results with me, you can always post your work to Instagram and tag me at Lou Rachel Davis. I always love seeing what you've made. So thanks so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you again very soon. Bye bye.